Hello everybody, hope you're doing well and thanks for joining us for another video. You'll often see flat earthers making various claims about flat earth, though they don't always actually agree with each other about these claims. For example, some people will point to this being the flat earth map, whilst others will say it's not, or they can't agree on why things move towards the ground when you drop them. But one claim that most flat earthers seem to agree on is the claim that they push about the Earth being measured flat. And one of the most vocal proponents of this claim is Nathan Oakley, somebody I've not actually covered on this channel for a while, but I have had quite a few of his followers commenting across numerous videos pushing these same claims that Nathan makes about the Earth being measured flat. In fact, it seems to be the only claim that Nathan really makes anymore.
In regards to them going down and measuring a flat Earth for us. Yeah, you're going to need a flat Earth for that. So I suggest you get on your knees and acknowledge just how flat Earth must be for these miles that you're utilising. They still measured Earth flat, though, even if it was to tellies that wasn't the real sun. You measured Earth flat there! Distance and path and motion are all mathematically derived from a flat Earth measurement. We're not going to be putting anything through any curve calculations until we acknowledge how flat it must be to get this measurement. You can't use flat Earth heights above sea level to say that Earth isn't flat. You'll need a flat Earth for it, you stupid clown.
So much so that even when he's presented with an observation that anyone can see causes a problem for flat Earth. For example, he was reviewing somebody's video recently where they put on screen a series of images of a building that were taken from further and further distances away. All of the images of the building were scaled so that the building appeared the same size in every single one, but you can see as the camera gets further and further away, more and more of the bottom of the building gets obstructed. Something that you fully expect with a globe. I've demonstrated this before using a curved surface, and you can see it every single day just watching objects going over the crest of a hill. So, what was Nathan's explanation for what causes this bottom-up obstruction on a flat Earth?
Effect that we see in this image.
You've got distances! What do you think this is? 25 kilometres, right? 34 kilometres. They're linear! Flat! You don't have curved distances in kilometres, you stupid girl. Don't use our measurements. How dare you assert that the distance in flat linear kilometres is going to debunk the distance in flat linear kilometres? Why do these stupid little children, this idiot, ignorant girl, make videos about how a flat Earth linear distance in kilometres to a building measured with a height off surface level proves Earth isn't flat? It's utterly stupid!
Yes, his attempted explanation of the observation was to not actually attempt to explain the observation at all, and instead just say that heights require a flat Earth, therefore the Earth must be flat, and so everything else is irrelevant. So, in this video, I'll be going over the various measurements that Nathan claims requires the Earth to be flat, such as elevation angles, heights, and distances, and showing how he's wrong and how anyone can see day to day that those measurements don't actually require flat surfaces. In reality, much of this is pretty straightforward geometry, a lot of which you could learn on the likes of Brilliant.org, because amongst their hundreds of online courses, they have ones on both geometry and geometric thinking. I've already done some of the classes on these courses. For example, my next class on the geometry course is Defining Angles, the opening image of which literally shows how you can work with angles on a circle. And the reason I personally love using Brilliant is because they simplify the topics and make use of interactive animations, which I find makes learning the topics much easier. And thanks to its app, you can even do classes while you're traveling. I love Brilliant so much that at the time of recording, I've been doing classes on Brilliant for over 850 consecutive days, having now completed more than 1,100 lessons. Try it for free for yourself using my link brilliant.org/Dave McKeegan, and doing so will entitle you to 20% off their annual subscription. So, Nathan Oakley, amongst many flat earthers, argue that all these different measurements, such as angles, heights, or distances, can only be done with a flat Earth, and so therefore the Earth must be flat, because apparently it's measured flat. But why does Nathan believe that the Earth is measured flat? And I suspect if Nathan ever does a reaction to this video, he will have just slammed the pause button down, probably for about the 10th time already, in response to me saying it's a belief, and he will have just yelled something along the lines of, "It's not a belief, it's a fact." For example, he says all elevation angles require a flat Earth.
Any evidence you can acquire an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline? When describing how high the sun is in Antarctica for a 24-hour period, with elevation angles as the description mathematically of the measurement taken, you will unequivocally require Earth be measured as a flat plane of reference to acquire an elevation angle to the sun.
So, the basis for this claim seems to be that he thinks you can't derive an angle from a curved surface, and that therefore you can only get angles to flat surfaces. Thus, Earth must apparently be flat in order to get an angle to a star. There are a few problems with this idea though. Firstly, you only need to look at sports like snooker, pool, curling, air hockey, and so on, which all rely on causing curved objects to travel off in a very particular direction by hitting them with another curved object. Often, that direction is off at an angle compared to the direction that the striking object is travelling, and the competitors need to and do know very accurately what angle those secondary objects will travel off at, which they wouldn't be able to do if you can't get an angle from curved surfaces. It's pretty straightforward to know the angles because you derive a tangent line where the curved surfaces meet, and then the secondary object will travel off perpendicular to that tangent line. In reality, if you'd like a much clearer clue that angles can absolutely work with curved surfaces, you only need to take the fact that you can see me clearly in this video. Because camera lenses are designed to carefully refract the light that is entering from all directions and bend those light paths so that they land very precisely on the camera sensor. And the lens manufacturers do this by using multiple pieces of curved glass. And the lens designers need to know very precisely the angles with which the light path will change when they interact with said curved glass pieces. Which means they're dealing with angles to and from curved surfaces. And when making elevation angle measurements to celestial objects, if you're referencing against the horizon of a globe, then you're creating a tangent line to the Earth's surface. So you're not measuring an angle from a curved surface, you're measuring the angle between the straight lines of sight that run from you to the horizon and you to the celestial objects, which are even shown in the diagrams that cycle through the background of Nathan's streams.
So when I go, how that flat Earth angle will or won't get used, here's another one on screen. Flat Earth elevation angle measurement to a star from a navigation manual. I didn't make this. I haven't measured one either.
Who would like to point out to Nathan that the diagram that he's showing here that he says is proof that you can't take angle measurements to curved surfaces is literally showing angle measurements being taken to a curved surface? Because that horizon line is sure as hell not straight, neither is the co-altitude line, and the diagram even states that it's using a great circle path through the observer's position, and great circles are routes across the surface of a globe, so well done, Nathan. But Nathan's response to those are to say that they're an orthographic view, and in reality we don't live in a 2D world where we would be viewing the side of our own head.
When he starts describing flat Earth only concepts functioning for them on a ball and pointing out the use of non-perspective based orthographic mathematics that have been bastardized by anti-flat earthers like Petey, marked with an X labelled horizon below the surface level, called Earth curve, when we see the side of our own head in an orthographic mathematics.
Of course, orthographic views are never a problem for architects, who create orthographic plans for 3D buildings, and the buildings get constructed just fine. But for the benefit of Nathan, here's a little demonstration of getting elevation angles to a curved surface from a first-person perspective. I have my Insta360 stuck inside my globe so that the viewer's perspective is as close to the surface of it as I can get. And I can then use this metal rod to signify our line of sight as we move it between a line to the light in the sky and then to the horizon where it will form a tangent line. And here is this same demonstration also shot from side on to prove that it does match orthographic view diagrams. So when taking sextant readings from the horizon, you then have to subtract what is called dip correction. And the amount of correction varies depending on your altitude. So you reference a nautical almanac which tells you how much dip correction to apply for your specific altitude, and you subtract that correction value off of your sextant measurement in order to get the angle from eye level to the celestial object. Except if you add a correction to something, but the correction value is wrong, then it will produce inaccurate results. Here is a demonstration done by Ion2, who took all of the dip correction values for various altitudes straight from a nautical almanac and plotted them out to show the dip corrections literally draw a curved surface with a radius of 7/6r, which is the globe including standard atmospheric refraction. So the correction values have to be accurate in order for the results to work. And the corrections that we apply for celestial navigation are literally being derived from a globe. The daft part, though, is he says the Earth must be flat because you can't take angle measurements from a curved surface. But if you can't take an angle measurement from a curved surface, then that means you couldn't take angle measurements to a curved surface either. So by Nathan's logic, you should only ever be able to take angle measurements to straight-edged objects. But when doing celestial navigation during the day, you take angle measurements to the sun. And Nathan has shown photos of the sun before and acknowledges it's circular.
This is what it looked like to me. Yeah, this is as close as possible as you get as, accurate amateur representations of the sun with a filter looking at sunspots.
So if you can take angle measurements to the curved surface of the sun, then you can also take angle measurements to the curved surface of a globe. Because both instances, you're just taking angles between tangent lines. I mean, the funniest part for me of all this, though, is something Nathan has clearly overlooked with regards to all of his arguments about celestial navigation actually working. Because he, like many flat earthers, especially since the final experiment, reject the idea that the AE map is the flat Earth map. Instead now, he argues there is no flat Earth map and that all maps are just projections of the globe.
If a flat earther tells you that there is no accurate flat Earth map...
Sorry, there is no flat Earth accurate map because they're all globe projections, distorting things. Like the azimuthal equidistant North Pole globe projection is a globe projection. It's not a flat Earth map.
So Nathan says taking angle measurements to stars to do celestial navigation requires a flat Earth, but just having angle measurements by themselves is pointless because that doesn't actually tell you where you are. In celestial navigation, you use those angles to give you circles of equal altitude, but that only works if you have an accurate map to plot the circles on. If you don't have an accurate map, you couldn't accurately plot your location. And as Nathan himself points out, all maps are projections of the globe. So for as much as Nathan likes to wrongly say that you need a flat Earth for celestial navigation, any form of navigation requires a globe because they all use maps and all maps are globe projections. And you can even see this because people have gone and taken celestial sightings and plotted them on a physical globe and managed to accurately get their location on that surface. By comparison, I once saw a flat earther try to plot out 3 celestial angles onto an AE map, and the circles didn't actually line up with each other. They were only able to narrow their location to being somewhere within Europe. So I would be interested to hear how Nathan thinks people can plot their locations out if they don't have an accurate map to do it on. In fact, that was another one of Nathan's hilarious diversions, because someone brought up the problem of not having an accurate flat Earth map if they were going to be taking a long flight or a sailing trip.
Like, for example, a flight from Sao Paulo to Rio, which is 220 miles, is about 1 hour and 20 minutes. But from Newark, New Jersey to Miami, which is 1,050 miles, it's a 3-hour flight. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And then when you look on the map that they give us, the distance is 5 times bigger.
I'm just confused. What do you mean it doesn't make sense? If those are the flight times, those are the flight times. What doesn't make sense?
I get what you're trying to say, but to me, the question I was trying to raise is that, if they lied to us about that, well, how do we know they didn't lie about the geography of the continents in the country? It would affect my life if I decide to go sail around the world thinking that, North America is that way when it's really not.
But, okay, so you're planning on getting a boat soon?
Now, Nathan just goes straight into quizzing the person about, are they actually planning the trip? Is this something they're going to immediately be doing?
You've got a boat, have you, that you're going to sail around the world like you've just said you will? Because then it might have an impact on you. Or are you just saying that hypothetically?
No, if I decide to impact me, but I'm not going to. I can't afford to do that.
Okay, I got you. Thanks. But for the hypothetical, you might sail around the world. It will have absolutely no impact on you whatsoever. Then, unless you decide tomorrow that hypothetical you might want to sail around the world, you put that into fruition. But you don't have any actual plans to do that. Therefore, this literally has no bearing on you at all.
And the moment that it was established that it wasn't something that was going to be happening right away, Nathan just shuts the conversation down.
It means nothing, but it's been conjured like it means something to you, and you've bought it hook, line and sinker. You feel that this is important now. It isn't. Meanwhile, the plane itself proves we're flying across a flat plane when the plane is measuring the ground with an altimeter for straight and level flight. Now, when that's the case, it is ideally the situation that someone like yourself comes along and thinks it's important to worry about a flight and whether or not the distance matches up with the time versus a map that's come from a globe projection that's based on angled measurements to a star, because then it all becomes so convoluted that you don't really know what it's proving or what it matters. And if you did get an answer to the question, are you suddenly going to get rich just to become a sailor so you can say this is important to you? Because it isn't, I assure you.
Yet, I remember a few years ago, Nathan was raging at a pilot, wanting them fired from their job because they openly stated they accounted for Coriolis when they were flying.
Tools on planes don't account for illusions, you idiot.
It's you're claiming it's an illusion, not me.
No, it is an illusion. I understand the Coriolis effect definition. Yeah, laugh it up. I want your job. I want you fired. I'm not here to answer your questions. All I'm waiting for is to find out who you are after finding out how dangerous you are, because I want to appeal to your employers to have your job taken away.
So he wants a pilot sacked for accounting for Coriolis when flying, because that's apparently dangerous. But he seems to have no concerns about pilots not having an accurate map to know what direction they should be flying, how far they're going to be travelling, and thus how much fuel they're going to need. I mean, we already have world maps that have been used to navigate around the oceans for centuries. So, if the Earth is flat, then this map must be a distorted view of flat Earth. So it should be pretty easy to undistort it back to a flat Earth. But we have literally hundreds of different flat map projections, and not only can none of them keep accurate distances between all points across Earth's surface, but then you have issues like the 24-hour sun's not working on them. For a few years, the AE map was widely accepted by flat earthers because it could explain the northern 24-hour sun by having the North Pole at the centre and the sun circling around it. Even going so far as having flat earther D. Marble making the prediction that there would be a 24-hour northern sun based on the AE map. Then, in 2016, he travelled to northern Alaska to see it and record it for himself, and then afterwards he appeared on Nathan's show to talk about it.
So I went to Alaska during summer solstice, and we did our filming by a place called Murphy's Dome.
His footage was even used by flat earthers on Nathan's channel as an argument that the Earth must therefore be flat.
Well, hang on, 24-hour sun, explain that on your model. Explain that 24-hour sun. Tell me how that works on your ball.
Well, why don't you answer my question first?
Well, no, because we're actually looking at the 24-hour sun.
Yeah, because it's on screen right now, and someone's gone
I
twice
mean,
and
This
measured
was
to
on
get it.
first.
However, that AE map does not allow for a 24-hour sun in the south. That would only work if you flip the map to an AE map centered on the South Pole. But then that would obviously screw up the northern 24-hour sun. So the existence of two 24-hour suns, one in the north and one in the south, has to be accounted for on Flat Earth. But they can't, which is why Flat Earthers just seem to avoid it, exactly as Nathan keeps doing. Now, whilst we were in Antarctica in December, actually observing and recording the southern 24-hour sun, one of the group who was there, MC Toon, joined a live stream that Nathan was hosting.
It's McToon. Is that the real McToon?
Hello. I'm in Antarctica. How you doing?
Hey, dude.
The sun did not set 24 hours.
Okay.
Yep. Turns out Nathan...
Earth's measured flat, then.
Hey Nathan, you lied. Robert Shortman lied.
Earth's measured flat, then, right?
Nathan, you lied. You lied, Nathan. Nathan, you are changing the topic, Nathan. I am walking around outside in Antarctica right now. I've got 10 people here with me. That was beautiful. I talked to you about Antarctica. You deflected to measurements. Since 2016, he's been saying if you go to Antarctica, you will be faced with gunpoint and turned away. Where's the guns, Nathan? Where's the guns? I don't see any guns, Nathan! You lied!
And the interaction that followed, Nathan loves to bring up.
What's that? You want to know where the guns are? The guns? What's that? You're going to put the phone down on me and tell McKeegan that I've tried to deflect with measurements? Really? Maybe Toon will do better next time he's in Antarctica measuring a flat Earth. But in the meantime, maybe you can help me out here, Duffy. Because I got the phone put down on me when I was proactively contacted by half your participants. They were filming themselves while they screamed my name into the Antarctic snow with frustration over the elevation angle measurements that you absolutely measured down there, but now seem to be denying.
Nathan keeps bringing this up as an apparent validation for Flat Earth, because on the call he kept talking about the Earth being measured flat, and the MC Toon said that Nathan had deflected to measurements.
Where are the guns, Nathan, got turned into a song? Did it get addressed? Why was he saying, quote, he tried to deflect with measurements and then screaming about guns into the Antarctic snow while saying my name? Well, because I pointed out that he measured Earth flat, that's why. And that as a consequence of those measurements that, quote, he tried to deflect with, end quote, McToon.
As though that is apparently proof that the Earth is flat, and how we must therefore be threatened by Nathan's claims that Toon felt so triggered and needed to call in. Unfortunately for Nathan, he's overlooked a few points. Firstly, the reason that MC Toon called into the show in the first place was nothing to do with him feeling threatened by Nathan's claims. The only reason that Toon joined Nathan's stream was because yours truly here suggested that he should. And my reason for the suggestion was nothing to do with Oakley's claims either. Instead, it was all part of a plan that I actually laid out in one of these videos 6 months before the trip. Now, with regards to verifying that the footage is being recorded in December and not being faked at some other time of the year earlier in the Northern Hemisphere, we could record ourselves watching and engaging with a relevant live stream that's happening at that time whilst we're in Antarctica. So, for example, if there are any flat earthers or globers who live stream on, say, December 16th, and we record ourselves in Antarctica watching that stream, commenting on it and showing the comments that are happening at that time, that offers a pretty easy way to verify that the footage was recorded there and then. It'll work best if it's a Flat Earthers live stream, because obviously we couldn't have CGI'd that in advance. I knew Flat Earthers would try and go down the rabbit hole of saying that we faked the trip in the north 6 months prior to TFE. So, me filming ourselves in Antarctica whilst we were interacting with a live stream that was taking place in December was a very easy way to then validate exactly when we were there. Having it be a Flat Earthers live stream would be even better, because then they can't say we pre-planned the whole stream in advance. And it being Nathan's stream was a perfect choice because he pretty much hates everybody who went on that trip. So there's no way he would be helping us out in any sort of deception. So really, Nathan was just a pawn in a plan. And the funny bit is, Nathan was definitely trying to deflect. For years, he's been saying that you cannot go to Antarctica. And for years, he's then referenced someone he interviewed on his channel who says they worked in Antarctica and didn't see a 24-hour sun.
Are you able to answer the question about 24 hours of light in Antarctica on a...
I've interviewed a guy who's not experienced 24 hours of daylight in Antarctica. He spent 18 months there. Have you ever spoken to anybody ever that's been in Antarctica? Because I spoke to a chap who was a plumber on one of the rigs that's out there and spent 18 months there and categorically stated he didn't experience 24 hours sunlight.
And just before MC Toon joined, Nathan was watching the live stream that was hosted on the TFE YouTube channel at midnight in Antarctica.
Is he using his camera? Is he using his camera or your camera here?
The stream was literally called It's Midnight in Antarctica. The stream was all about the fact that we were in Antarctica, it was midnight and the sun had not set. And MC Toon joined in to talk to Nathan about the fact that we were in Antarctica and the sun had not set.
I'm in Antarctica. How you doing?
Hey, dude.
The sun did not set. 24 hours.
And after Nathan had first tried quizzing to see had people actually been awake to watch the sun for the entire time...
So you've been up for 24 hours straight? Wow.
I have. So has Dave McKeegan.
Both you and Dave stayed up 24 hours?
That's right.
And failed very quickly because I had. He stopped wanting to talk about the fact that we were in Antarctica and that the sun didn't set, and instead just wanted to draw the conversation to parroting his claims about the Earth being measured flat.
I think that counts 10, but we have between 8 and 10 cameras that have been filming the entire time.
Okay. You know Earth's measured flat, though, right, Toon?
Hey, Nathan, you lied.
You know Earth's measured flat, though, right, Toon?
So MC Toon was entirely on point that Nathan tried to deflect. What Nathan hasn't quite grasped is that deflecting to the topic of measurements does not actually mean that what he's saying about the topic of measurements is accurate. If Nathan had instead repeatedly avoided talking about Antarctica by claiming that tigers are insects, and MC Toon then said he tried to deflect to insects, that does not then mean that tigers are actually insects, it just means that Nathan tried to deflect to a different topic, which is exactly what he was doing. And what he continues to do to this day, by deflecting to claims that heights are a flat Earth measurement.
It means nothing, but it's been conjured like it means something to you, and you've bought it hook, line and sinker. You feel that this is important now. It isn't. Meanwhile, the plane itself proves we're flying across a flat plane when the plane is measuring the ground with an altimeter for straight and level flight.
Except this idea that you need a flat surface to measure a height from very quickly fails again when you realise that if you need a flat surface to measure a height from, you also need a flat surface to measure a height to, which means you'd then never be able to measure how high the light bulb is in your ceiling off the floor. I could put a tape measure against my globe and measure how high something is off its surface. We can even go so far as being able to measure the distances between two curved surfaces using a circle. If you look at the sport of curling, which incidentally is another example of working with angles to curved surfaces, but the goal of curling is to have your stone closer to the centre of the target than your opponent's. And whilst the closest is usually quite apparent, if and when there are two opposing stones a very similar distance from the centre, the judges need to measure which is the closest. And they do this by using a piece of equipment that sort of acts like a giant maths compass. They plant a pivot point of the device on the centre mark of the target. They then move a measuring marker to the closest part of one of the stones and then sweep the marker round in an arc to the other stone. The principle being that if the marker is just touching the edge of the first stone, an arc will be that same distance to the centre of the target. But that is measuring the distance of curved surfaces of a stone using a curve to measure. Or, I could just easily argue that if you can't get a height from a curved surface, then you couldn't stand on a hill and measure the height of a person. Yet I'm pretty sure most people realise that you can do that. And finally, in the trio of Nathan's flat earth measurements is linear distances.
But today, many of us live where the roads are good and travelling hundreds of miles.
Miles? What, like a linear flat earth distance prerequisite for the maps that have got scales that are only capable of description with respect to a flat surface? Those sorts of miles, son. Yeah, you're going to need a flat earth for that. So I suggest you get on your knees and acknowledge just how flat earth must be for these miles that you're utilising.
Because of this, I set out to measure the size of the Earth for myself. First, I need to find a way to measure the distance between two cities.
Sorry, the distance measurement is a linear distance. I just covered this. So immediately you're into utilising flat earth prerequisites for this example.
And this again is pretty easy to debunk. I mean, heights and linear distances, they're essentially the same, they just change the orientation. But if kilometres are a linear distance, then so too are metres and so too are centimetres. And if we could only measure straight lines with those distances, then that means that a circle could never have a circumference. Any journey that you took that involved travelling over hills would have an indeterminate length to them because the distance going over those hills would be done with linear measurements. And again, Nathan and his audience often draw on this idea of linear distances to try and shut down arguments that they can't answer. For example, I recently heard someone bringing up the topic of stars dropping by 1 degree per 69 miles of travel.
Because you take 69 miles per degree, you get 6210, and that would be your R value. 6210 is your R value. And then you get a circumference for that. What circumference do you get?
And the person then made reference to the fact that you can independently verify that you've travelled 69 miles by using the odometer on your car.
Just like flat.
Okay, Brian. I can test that because I use Navionics because I live in Florida, so I have a boat GPS on my phone, which gives me my nautical mile of travel as I travel across the ocean or even in my car because I can use it. So I can compare the Navionics app to my odometer on my car or something like that.
But then one of Nathan's panel argues that the distance the odometer is measuring is a linear distance of miles.
So we're going to measure with an odometer a linear distance in miles, and then we're going to take an angle measurement from a plane of reference to Polaris. Where's the ball in this?
Now, what I love about that particular argument is they're saying it's a linear distance of miles, but odometers literally work by measuring circles. The odometer is taking the circumference of your car's tyre and counting the number of rotations that the tyre makes. Each full rotation of the tyre means that your car has travelled that distance of the tyre's circumference. It's why it's not recommended that you change your car tyres to a different size, or if you do, recalibrate your odometer, because a tyre with a different circumference will then cause the odometer to give inaccurate measurements for how far you've travelled. Now, Nathan or one of his watchers may try and put forward the argument that the circumference of the tyre is only being calculated based on the radius or the diameter. kind of like this.
So the minimum elevation angle measurement to Polaris can be calculated after measurement with a strange to describe now I think about it, but circumferential value. But the derivation of that circumferential value that shouldn't really be described in miles, in my humble opinion, is an after-the-fact derivation of an elevation angle that gives you a radial value, a straight line. Well, the radial value that's being derived with the minimum elevation angle measurement to Polaris, number one, isn't a calculation, as he's just said, it's a measurement. And that measurement must be straight, because it won't be a radius to infer sphericity with if it isn't a straight measurement along the ground.
Except that's probably not the best argument for them to make, because the radius is the distance between the centre of the circle and the edge of the circle, and the edge of the circle is curved. So there is no difference between measuring from a tangent in towards the centre of the circle than there is measuring from a tangent away from the centre of the circle, which would give you a height above the circle. I mean, I can still remember as far back as primary school measuring the distance around our playground using a trundle wheel, or as you may know them, a measuring wheel or surveyor's wheel. Exactly like this. You roll it along the ground and it will measure how many meters or centimeters that you've travelled. And I'm sure right about now some flat earthers will be thinking, yeah, but you're rolling it along the ground and the ground is flat, so it's therefore still measuring the earth flat. But I can use this wheel to measure the circumference of a ball. So just saying distance is a linear, therefore earth is measured flat doesn't work, because those same distances still apply to curved surfaces in our everyday lives. Nathan's entire mantra for months has been nothing but earth is measured flat, and even goes so far as to proclaim himself an expert in the topic.
And after the fact, after measuring earth flat several times, what, Jaron's now a baller? No, he's a shill. So's Witsit, because he ain't pointing that out. I'll point it out to the limited audience that I get. I'm struggling to gain 100 views in 10 years of videography about this subject as a specialist, as an expert, as the only people opposing these scumbags who tell you, Earth's a ball because we measured it flat with angles to the sun for 24 hours.
Except I don't think Nathan's ever measured anything of the Earth. But only a few years ago, this self-proclaimed expert of measurements quite famously didn't actually know how to convert basic primary school level measurement units.
How do you convert meters into kilometers?
I don't know. How do you convert meters into kilometers?
What's the correct way?
You tell me.
The correct way is divide meters by 1,000. You didn't do that.
So if you have a meter and I divide that meter by 1,000, you don't think that would give you millimeters?
Meters into kilometers, Nathan.
You just said you divide meters by 1,000 to get kilometers. So you're saying I divide something that is 1 meter long by 1,000, and that will come out to a kilometer value.
And yet, the very people whose job it actually is to go out and measure the Earth, i.e. surveyors, measure the Earth as a globe. I have done videos previously on this, but basically, if you set up a surveyor's theodolite, and you were to have a target marker that is the same height as it, then the top of the marker would appear to be in the centre of the theodolite site. If you then move that marker across a truly flat surface, the top of the marker will always appear in the centre of the site. But if the surface is not flat, i.e. there is a hill or a ditch, then the top of the marker can move up or down relative to the centre of the site. Surveyors can then measure by what angle the marker has moved, and if they know how far away the marker is, they can then calculate the elevation change of the ground from the theodolite to the marker. And it would just be that with a flat Earth. However, with a globe, the marker will naturally drop down from the centre of the site due to the curvature of Earth. So a surveyor wouldn't actually then immediately know if the drop they were seeing was from an elevation change in the terrain or due to the curvature of Earth. So they would then have to measure how far across the surface of Earth the marker has been moved from the theodolite to then calculate how much Earth curvature drop there would be and subtract that from the measured drop of the marker to see how much of the drop is being caused by an elevation change of the terrain versus how much of it is curvature. And this calculation process used to have to be done manually, because a theodolite has no idea how far away the target marker is to know how much curvature would be affecting things. Nowadays, though, professional surveyors have access to tools called total stations, which are quite similar to theodolites, but they also include a laser rangefinder as well. So the station can automatically follow the marker as the surveyor walks off with it. Once the surveyor gets to their desired location, they press a button on the marker pole, which tells the station to take a measurement. And this measurement will not only be the angle change to the marker, but also what distance the marker is away. And the total station has an automatic correction for Earth curvature programmed into it. It measures the distance that the marker has moved and calculates how much Earth curvature would be affecting it, and it automatically subtracts it before giving the final result to the surveyors. So every measurement that a surveyor takes using a total station is measuring the Earth as a globe, which means one of two things. Either A, the Earth is a globe, or B, every single survey ever done with a total station is wrong. Either way, for as much as Nathan and his crew love to spend hours a day parroting that the Earth is measured flat, not only are all their concepts demonstrably wrong, but the very people who actually measure the Earth don't measure the Earth flat. And I think that's going to conclude this video. As always, feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video and you haven't already done so, then please do consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.